Yeah. Merci beaucoup, Karine, pour l'introduction. Et bonjour à tout le monde. And I switch to English. I hope you can understand this because, yeah, usually I talk, my lectures are in English, so my thinking is a bit better in this sphere. I'm an applied social scientist in agriculture. My department is communication and advisory services in rural areas. And yeah, as I said, I work very much applied. It's about, yeah, bringing and realizing change together with multiple stakeholders in, yeah, interactive ways, in inter and transdisciplinary ways. Yeah, I'm a trained agricultural scientist with this specialization in the field of agricultural extension. Before I start with my talk, I would like to know who you are in this respect. And I would like to ask you, those of you who consider yourself a natural scientist, could you please stand up? Natural scientist. How do you say it? Naissance naturelle, voilà. Yes, please, could you get up? Do a little bit of morning exercise. Yeah, so maths, first, this is all natural sciences. You know there are these laws. Okay, so what can we say? Please just have a look around. I would say it's 50% of the audience is natural science. More, yeah. So it's more than 50% natural sciences. Thank you so much. Who does consider yourself as a tech person or an engineer? Please get up. Okay, there is some double, yeah? Yeah, but we see it's a little less, yeah? So it's maybe 20%. Now, the social scientists, please get up. Okay, look around, it's more than the tech guys. Yeah, some have two hats. Yeah, thank you so much, but it's a minority. It's less than 30%, I would say. And so, who had not got up yet, then please stand up now. The ones, so everyone has, okay. So we see we are quite heterogeneous here. And yeah, actually I would like to continue now to ask you whether you work with farmers or with other stakeholders or more with scientific colleagues. But I think for the sake of the talk, I now start and go on. Yeah, okay. I will briefly start with the, I can go back, with the key messages. So I'm going to talk in the frame of the idea that there will and should be transformation of agri-food systems, and that this type of transformation, also we are talking about this quite a lot nowadays, is very complex, it's multifaceted. That means you cannot easily recognize it ex ante. It can be iterative and it's mostly unpredictable. And nevertheless, we try to somehow understand it, and system concepts help us to understand it. And I will particularly focus on a system concept that is called AKIS, Agricultural Knowledge and Innovation Systems. And I will try to make you familiar with it if you are not yet so, of course. And particularly come to how this helps us to understand voluntary change. Then we are mostly thinking about farmers to change, but also other actors, of course. And we will see how this happens through making use of innovation and knowledge, or we will not see, but we will think about how this happens and how it is meant that advisory services can help to support such voluntary change. And finally, I will come to digitalization at my last part, and we will see how and that experts and farmers differ still quite a lot in this respect, and we hopefully can discuss how to smoothly overcome such differences. Okay, as I said, I will start with a more broader look into the AKIS concept. I will talk about how it is used in policies, and I will always refer to EU, because this is the field I'm mostly working at or in. We will look into information and knowledge exchange features organizations mostly, and then come to the question what we know about nowadays farmers and others' adoptions of digitalization on the way towards agroecology. So the overall context, I'm pretty sure you are very much aware of this. We are in a situation of having multiple crises that challenge agriculture in many ways. And yeah, there is lots of activities to bring about change. And this change happens through people. So it's not that we can introduce this change by technologies. It's happening because people have to engage with this, and they have somehow to deal with what we call wicked problems. Wicked problems are those that we cannot easily solve, that are interdependent, we cannot easily understand them. We may oversee many friction, so it's stepwise and it's never completely ended, let's say. So the solutions to such kind of problems, they require the cooperation of many actors and also a lot of reflexivity back and forth. So this is the overall context in which we are looking at transformation and how do we imagine transformation. We, in our unit and within some projects, we imagine a transformation pathway as a kind of a corridor in which many, many decisions take place. And yeah, there are many options also. And the aim is that through a series of internested decisions at various governance levels, we move towards an envisaged aim or goal. And to do so, it's our conviction, I would say, that we need facts, we need lots of knowledge, we need to understand the systems. That means we need to understand how reality works. But we also need values that guide our decisions. We need to be conscious about the values that we have. We need to discuss them and agree upon. And we need some knowledge about how to transform or how to implement these facts and values into practice. So this is called transformation knowledge. The EU has materialized the insight that we need very good knowledge and also innovation, new things, in their policies. You are very much aware, I guess, that EU policies are oriented towards bringing about innovations, change, economic change, performance. And in agriculture, you are aware that we have this series of objectives that are not only related to farms, but also to the environment, to the rural areas, to the society. And then they have formulated one cross-cutting objective that is called knowledge and innovation. And you see it here. It's about the fact that the EU says we want to modernize agriculture. And we want to do this through the providing access to farmers and others to knowledge, to innovation. And we see digitalization also as an important feature into bringing about this change. So this is now roughly 10 years ago that this became, so it was in the last, but step by step wise, this feature or this featuring knowledge became more and more important. And now in the last Common Agricultural Policy, the EU implemented a concept that made this knowledge understanding more tangible, let's say. This is the AKIS concept. So AKIS stands for Agriculture Knowledge and Innovation System, and it goes back to a former definition that was developed in extension in the 70s and the 80s. Then it was called Agricultural Knowledge and Information System, so we can discuss these terminologies. But essentially, it means that in order to bring about knowledge to farmers and other actors in rural areas, this is not only one advisor who brings this, but it's a combination, it's a synergy of many actors that are engaged in generating, operationalizing, disseminating, and sharing knowledge. And it is about a that these different actors somehow perform together, or that farmers make them working together, that it happens that they get access to relevant and new knowledge, that they understand what the facts are, and so on. So you understand that this is a system perspective about how the various interdependencies of these actors matter, that farmers get the knowledge on the new milking robot or not, for example. So this model clearly widens our perspective. It makes it broader when we look at how knowledge comes to farmers. There are several, and then from the 90s to the 2000s, there was also this shift that it's not only about knowledge, but it's about bringing innovations, new products, processes to the practice that should also be included. So actually in practice, there is not such a big step from new knowledge to innovations when farmers start to implement it, but it became expressed in the term. But also behind this module, there are several ideas of how a system works. There can be a focus on this system, this AKIS, as a composition of various subsystems, and you are then again familiar with these subsystems. You have research, extension, education as subsystems to the agricultural knowledge and innovation systems. But there are more like support systems, and there can be various actors, as you see in the definition above. Others see this knowledge, this AKIS, more as a network. They focus on the interaction dimension. So this to say that this AKIS concept has multiple facets, and there can be different understandings of what is behind this concept. So why do I stress so much this concept? Because it has entered EU policies in 2023 when they introduced that the member states have national strategic plans. There is formulated that the national strategic plans should also incorporate an approach how to strengthen the agriculture knowledge and innovation system through a number of measures that address advisory services, cooperation among various stakeholders, training, information, and so on. And most prominent, I guess you have heard, maybe you have heard, are operational groups. So since 2014, in almost every EU member state, they have an instrument that is called PEPR Agroécologie. That means European Innovation Partnership for Agricultural Sustainability and Productivity. And it works as an instrument to enhance researchers to cooperate with farmers, with advisors and other actors focused around a certain challenge. So to create small innovation networks that find the solution to a particular problem, to a particular challenge. And in the first period, more than 3,000 of these groups have been created all over Europe. And for this period, it's expected that there will be another 6,000. So imagine roughly maybe 10 to 15 people in an operational group. This is what is in all the EU member states. You have these kind of bottom-up movements to address some kind of innovation. Very particular, very specific, with a number of experts in this field, but it's a multi-actor approach, it's a heterogeneous network. In parallel, the EU also developed an approach through the funding of their projects, the multi-actor approach that goes into the same direction to create heterogeneous networks or heterogeneous partnerships that collaborate for the sake of innovation. And why is that? Because the idea is from these different perspectives, you bring different types of relevant knowledge that make an innovation more appropriate to practice, more susceptible to be accepted and implemented. Okay, the time is running, I go on. This is now, so this was, no, sorry. This was to show how this approach is implemented in in policies. How do we use this now at the interface between policy and research? In some projects, we have developed an approach to somehow address this ACIS. As I said, it's a very vague, very interpretable concept. And in a project, we have developed an approach to sketch, to draft an ACIS at the national level in order to help decision makers, help everyone engaged in this knowledge and innovation field to orient. How does this diversity of actors, what is the constellation? How do they act and interact? How well are they organized? And in all the member states, they have developed such reports on the ACIS and also visualized them in form of graphs. I have brought here the French graph. Of course, it's very, very simplified, right? And it was a kind of a snapshot at a certain moment of time. So you may find many critiques, I guess, but it helps us to understand that there is a big... Does this work? No, it does not work. So in blue, you see the public actors, and you see quite some public actors, but more near to the farmers are even actors that have a strong farmer background, like the Chamber of Agriculture, farmer cooperatives, and so on. Then you see in the bottom line the private sector that is also very much engaged in providing knowledge and innovations for farmers. And the idea is to look at this kind of diversity of actors with a comprehensive view, and then you can also locate some actors and discuss about whether this is correct or not. It helps you to analyze the situation. I also brought the German to show how the differences are. So we did not every ACIS is similar, and also this is from 2020. Here we try to visualize that in Germany we have multiple intervention levels. Agricultural policies are made at the regional, at the state level. So we have quite good vertical integration within the organizations and quite some deficits in horizontal exchange between the states. So these are things you can see. For example, what you can see and what is very much criticized in Germany is here in green is the research bodies, and there is not much communication between farmers and research directly. So this is just an example how we use this ACIS approach in practice for discussion, for situational analysis and diagnosis. I want to go a bit deeper into highlighting you this diversity of actors across the EU. Here you see an analysis of a series of reports, and we have tried to identify the actors, the organizations, according to 5 different types. Here you see at the top, we distinguish between public authorities, research and education authorities, farmer-based organizations, third sector, NGOs, and private companies and entrepreneurs, because from their organizational setup, they have different features in terms of objectives, in terms of mandates, in terms of agency. And so these are the categories, and we analyzed, and where you see the green colors, that means there are quite a number within each of the categories. And yellows means not so many, red very few, and black not at all. And you see that in many Western European countries you have a considerable diversity of ACIS actors, while in some Western and Southern countries you have, some Eastern and Southern countries you have considerably less diversity, and in almost all the countries we have the first 3 categories: public authorities, research, education, farmer-based organizations. Why are farmer-based organizations so important? Oops, I missed one. I took it out. Okay. Why are farmer-based organizations so important? Because they integrate both, let's say, an orientation like being an advisory organization or a research organization, and at the same time, through farmer representatives, they are much nearer to their interests. And this is also that we see that farmers tend to trust such farmer-based organizations more than the public actor or others. Here in France, when you remember the overview graph, there is quite a strong diversity of farmer-based organizations. The one prominent is the Chamber of Agriculture, of course. So when we look across the EU, we see that in many countries we have a dominance of public organizations, or the public actor is the dominant advisory and innovation support providing actor. But quite a number also have strong farmer-based organizations. So, and you see there is a diversity across the EU. There are some countries with mostly predominant private organizations, and quite a number also where we have a mixture with dominant actors. So to summarize, we see when we look at this ACEs concept, we see that the concept has strong features. It's quite prominent in the sense that it helps us to recognize the diversity of actors, and this diversity comes with strengths in the sense that many people can make use of this, but also there are different sources of information, and the concept also helps us to focus on the interrelations of the interdependencies, on the question how well do they cooperate and how well do they function together. Then we can use this concept as a political approach to guide our action in practice. And there it helps us to understand that actors have multiple roles. For example, a chamber has not only advisory service, they do research, they do sometimes do controls, they have administrative tasks, sometimes they issue also money payments and so on. So the more diversity also and the more complex the situation gets, the more roles actors have, and this is important to understand. And from this diversity also results an increased need of governance. Governance is not government. Governance means that there are interactions and that many actors support change, for example, so that there is voluntary cooperation, for example, that there is support from farmers' association to bring about change. And this is something we need very much in pluralistic societies. So, and secondly, also coordination is needed. So the public actor also changes their roles. Nevertheless, I would very much like to highlight that this concept also comes with caveats. This is, as a concept, it has a limited explanatory power. It is not well grounded in theory, in social science theory. It helps us to understand, to get an overview, but not so much to analyze the situation. And the term system is very fuzzy. It is somehow, it may lead us to conclusions that are not yet really behind. From this ACEs concept, I would like to continue now on the diversity of the advisory features within the EU. I already started to talk here about the most important advisory service providing structures. And I go on to highlight this a bit more. Why does it matter, the diversity of advisory service and innovation support actors, and how does it matter? And this is one example just to show you. Here, this is data from a survey across the EU in which participated 500 advisory providing actors. And here we have the 280 organizational representatives, and they have shown how they split activities across the various tasks they have. And we see some clear differences between the different organizational types, and this is what I want to highlight. So if you go to number 1, university research-based actors and government actors, you see they have a clear teaching, or they they have much more, they spend more time in teaching than the others. Secondly, when we go to the non-governmental organizations, we see that they have a strong activity in the second, in the yellow part. This is the innovation support services. They are outstanding in this field. The dark red is the technical, the targeted consultancy services. And you see that private actors and farmer-based organizations have a strong focus in these type of activities. So to make evident that there are really differences in the features, that means in the capacities and the competences of these organizations. And there is one important deficit, or let's say a weakness. We have increasingly, you see it's a big number of private commercial enterprises that provide advice, and this is spreading. This is what is also wanted with increasing market economies in this field, but they have the least time to make use of their back office or to operationalize new knowledge, to refresh, to train themselves. They spend the least of time. We can understand this, and so it's important to make this difference. Yeah. Now we see trends and the results we see trends in this development of the advisory and innovation service providers in the EU, and I think this, and you can confirm or we can discuss about this, is similar also in France. We see an increasing actor diversity, an increasing pluralism with which we have to deal. And this comes with advantages and inconveniences. We see that services, in general, services reach the better of farmers or the well-educated farmers rather than the ones that are average or minority. So more activities are needed to have a broader coverage. But also there is a very, you can say, a very realistic turn. We have much more peer-to-peer learning nowadays, and as I showed, we have interactive innovation science practice networks. So these are the big trends. We see a strengthening of advisory and innovation support services in the EU in the last decades, and I believe that this will go on at least another 10 years, let's say. Now I come to the last point. So this comes with some risks. We can discuss them later. I come to the last point, and this is now the link to what is the topic here. What are the potentials and limitations of digitalization to support a transition in agriculture, and particularly a transition towards agroecology? So in policy, the authors are quite sure there is synergy between digital technologies and modernization, and also between agroecology and a transformation in the EU. And this view that we have strong synergies and this is very promising is also shared in literature. There are quite some reviews on this that there's a huge potential that digitalization will support agroecology, and that this is positive. So there is a very optimistic view. There are some critiques. There can be risks from the technologies, but we have to handle the technologies. Social scientists are a little bit more careful in this respect, but still, I will say widely, we have a very positive attitude among the scientists. We have also looked empirically into what experts say about digitalization and how farmers look at this. And generally, we can say the experts are very optimistic and they see the long-term trend, and they also mention some caveats and problems, but they are very positive. While farmers in general, they have quite a reservation towards digitalization, and they see farmers mostly see, the ones with whom we talk, they mostly see the relief of work, the ease, the physical relief, and that with the respect to stress, they are a bit mixed. We have asked about where do farmers get their information about digital tools, and we see it's mostly from peers, but also from agricultural press, fairs and demonstrations. So we see advisors and public actors, for example, do not have such an influence. And this was also confirmed when we asked about where do you trust in? Where does the trust come from for advisory, for when you want to buy new or adopt new technologies, digital technologies? So you can see that it's mostly here other farmers. That's the strongest point. We have looked into what do farmers do, and start on the right side. Half of the farmers that were here surveyed, this was in Baden-Württemberg, half of them, the yellow and the maple one is did use training offers, while a very small group here, only 13% did use advisory services. So I have one last slide. Yeah, okay, let's go for this. This is the last one. My tentative conclusions is in farms we see a cautious wait and see attitude, but we see a lot of technology curiosity, and we see that in sense of facilitating the work and saving labor, these digital technologies have already confirmed made their proof, but complex innovations will still take quite a while. In some, education, advisory and innovation support services still need a lot to catch up, actually, I would say. And in some, all the actors need to learn quite a lot to make digital tools really be implemented. But so far from my side, I could not see specific advantages or driving factors that make digital technologies more relevant for agroecology. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Donc on a 10 minutes pour les questions. You want the question in French, in English?
It can come in any language.
Okay. Question de la salle.
Just to start.
Yep.
So thank you, Professor. This was extremely interesting. Concerning digitalization, the words that you are using are the same words that we might have used 70 years ago that led to monoculture in agricultural and in breeding stock. Is there a consensus in the ACUS field that diversification of the digitalization leads to better resiliency rather than to a greater dependence on single technology solutions?
You said diversification of digital tools lead?
Yes, because we see a fairly strong concentration of digitalization technologies in a small number of industrial actors. And we could draw a parallel to the introduction of single breeds and monoculture in agricultural systems, which are a source of risk, because that creates a greater attack area for a pathogen or for a bad actor. And so I was wondering whether that parallel had been drawn towards the suggestion of digitalization to see whether there is or not a consensus that this currently observed monoculture is a source of risk that can be mitigated by diversification.
Yeah, so this is not my field of study, but I had a lecture, or I followed in a conference last year, and there was a Canadian political scientist who studied this question across the US, and I would say yes, that was her conclusion.
Thank you so much, Andrea. So interesting. We have some answers. Hello. I think that Pierre can answer you. And one of our colleagues, Eleonore Schnebelen, found that, and she's in Agir in RAE, in Toulouse, and she wrote something as there are several types of agricultures and there will be several types of digital technologies, because there is no one size fits all in digital technology. technology ever. My question is on your engagement of the public actors in these fields is a huge asset, which is a little bit in contradiction with, but I mean, it's normal, with what you have shown before, which is that the trust is not much in those public actors. So can you explain how you get to that conclusion?
Yeah,
and which type of engagement do you mention here?
Exactly, yeah, that's a very good question, because this was really a shortcut. I refer to two things. One is that with this increasing pluralism, the public actor has to become much more a coordinating actor and the actor who creates transparency about the situation. So there are many things a public actor can do to create transparency. And it's not to become muddled into the implementation. So this is changing the role. Secondly, with respect to now other ACES actors than the farmers, yeah, we saw that it's really hard for educational teachers and in vocational schools, for example, and for many advisors to catch up with the fast development in the digital field. And then it's very important that there are some projects that help to create common understanding about some issues in specific fields. And this is the public actor who can build up a program, who can have someone who sorts out, and so on. So this kind of helping forward, getting overviews, understanding what is behind different options. Of course, there should be different options, but in the field, actors are so overwhelmed of all the diversity that is there technologically, related with quite a number of additional challenges, right? The technologies come with optional solutions, but they also come with many challenges to clarify before they are effective.
Hi, yeah, thanks again. You started out your talk with talking about the wicked problems. So, I mean, one reason why a problem is wicked is that it has a systemic nature. And then during most of the talk, most of the work you presented was oriented towards farmers. So I was wondering if you also look at, let's say, the meta structure of the agri-food chain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, here I looked at the meta structure of the ACES, so of the Agricultural Knowledge and Innovation System. And I presented some empirical data from the farmers, but I will also have quite a lot of empirical data on the other ACES actors. So actually, some people rather reproach me not to focus too much on farmers, so I would say that's maybe a selection, but I look at it with a systemic perspective and we work with living labs, for example, to practice such systemic approaches at the local level. But I also are engaged in projects where we, for example, focus on those people who tried from a public perspective to coordinate and govern within the ACES the actors. So we work at various levels.
Pierre, et c'est peut-être la dernière question.
C'est plus... sorry, I will switch to English, or je peux te parler en français ou...
No, please stick in English.
I will speak in English. It's more reaction to Veronique's question and to highlight a very common feature that we have both in your work and what we did in other projects is a kind of disconnect that we see that because of privatization in many EU contexts of extension services, advisory and training, we see that the sources of information of farmers changed, and that private suppliers like machinery dealers, chemical dealers, and all these kind of actors have gained more and more trust with farmers, and this was highlighted in one of in different slides presented by Andrea. And these actors are poorly connected to public research, which means that within the system we see a kind of growing segmentation, that farmers are more and more connected to actors who are not connected to public research. And this is a trend, and I think that has been demonstrated in different research in Andrea's presentation and other. And I think it's it's potentially a growing concern in the way IKIS is functioning, and I just wanted to have your view on this trend that we.
Yes, I fully agree. We have an emergent diversity. We have the public sector and the private companies that produce, and that of course these companies also provide knowledge, right? And many farmers of course talk to their providers of technologies, of inputs and so on. So they take a lot of information from them too, but they may not fully trust them, but of course they talk to them, so they get information from all sides. And to confirm further on the mention that it's important that these different actors collaborate better, I just want to highlight, we work with schools, with vocational schools, in order to update the teachers' knowledge about digital tools. And we do this together with our experimental station from the university, and they have a lot of connections to private companies who have digital machinery. And so there is a fruitful cooperation among these bodies, and it will be important in the future to even better cooperate in these fields. So yes, there is this need, and we need, as public actors, we need a good standing in this regard. So we should not be avert or anxious, but on the other side, of course, we should not be their clients or the promoters, right? So we need to have another standing in this respect, but it's important to have this, because also the private actors, they may profit to get a better connection as to what is going on in the public. So again, the state as a public actor could also create more forum where there is interaction. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Andrea.